So I finished my cat's face study, and today in this video I'm going to show you which pencils and which colours I mixed together to get the colour of the cat's nose. If you're interested in the complete step-by-step tutorial of the cat's face, you can find that over in my art membership on my website or over on Patreon, and I'll link that in the description. Okay, so here's an extract of the tutorial. Enjoy the video. So let's have a look at what colours we're going to mix in this nose. So if we just have a look at the nose, I'm fairly sure that I don't have the exact pencil colour that I need for that nose. I'm going to have to mix pencil colours. And I can see oranges, peaches, reds, all sort of coming through in this nose. What I want to do is I want to start with a base layer. And I'm going to start with the warm grey one as a base layer. The reason that I'm starting with the warm grey one and not something like, let's just say an ivory or something, is because I can see that this colour is quite, what I would call quite an earthy colour. It's quite a muted colour. And if I was to go in with the ivory or something really, really bright as a base layer, it would all become sort of too bright for me. I want to keep it earthy. And as I zoom in, I'll zoom it in so big that you can't really see what we're actually looking at. But if we look at, if I just grab the pen so I can draw on here. If we look at some of the colours that are coming through as the highlight bits, I don't know if you can see those, but they are that sort of warm grey one type colour. They're that sort of really, really light colour. They're quite an earthy colour. They're quite a muted colour, and they're not a bright colour. You're not seeing like a bright ivory in there. It's more of a sort of earthy, muted colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the warm grey one as a base layer, and I'm just going to put that all the way over the nose. Bring that all the way down to the edge of the nose. So I've got a nice base layer of the warm grey one. The next colour that I'm going to bring into there is a brown ochre 10% from the Luminance pencils, because I want to bring some of that yellowness through, but I want to make sure that it's quite earthy. So I'm going to bring over the top, I'm going to apply a bit of this brown ochre 10% over the base layer, over that warm grey one. So we've got that tint of yellow coming through, but it's quite a grey, earthy sort of yellow colour. It's not a really bright, it's quite a muted yellow colour. Okay, so we've got the brown ochre 10%, and these are all really, really light applications of colour. We're just going to build this up with lots of really light layers. Once I've done that, the next sort of colour that I can see, I'm looking for the next lightness of colour that I can see. And I can see that there is a little bit of pink coming through, particularly at the top. And I'm going to go in with a little bit of cinnamon over the top of this, just a really, really light glaze. So I'm going to look at putting a little bit of cinnamon over the top. It's a really light glaze. Can you see how much is coming off? Hardly anything. Let's just take this right the way up to the top. I'm just going to use circular strokes because we can't see any direction of anything in this fur. It's just a nice glaze. Building it all up with glazes. Bring it down here as well, actually. My pencil's just broken there, and it's just giving me quite a harsh pencil line. And normally I wouldn't worry about it, but I am going to dab that out because I don't want that harsh pencil line to show through. As it broke, it just sort of hit the paper. So let's go back to the brown ochre 10% just to go back up through the layers, because I've sort of gone down to the base layer. And then let's go back to the cinnamon. But what I've got now is I've got a really, really sharp, harsh pencil on the end of there, if you can see that, because it just snapped off and I don't want that. So I'm just going to grab my bit of scrap paper from earlier and I'm going to smooth that down. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get the nice smooth application of colour with a harsh edge on it. So just go in with the cinnamon and you can see we're already starting to build up a nice sort of peachy salmon type colour. Taking it all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to come in now with that scarlet red that I was just talking about, and I'm going to just look for the areas that are a little bit darker. So I can see it's a bit darker around this nostril, so I'm going to use some curved strokes to just start to blend off the edge of this nostril. Start to get the thickness of the nose. Really, really light pressure again. I'm going to make that darker down the bottom because that's going to go quite dark down there. When we get to this crease down the nose, I'm just going to use circular strokes and just blend down this side. This side's the darker bit. Again, blend down towards the bottom and blend around this nose. Now on this side there is a really fine line. If I just go back to the drawing, there's a really fine line of a lighter colour just along the edge of that nose. So I'm not going to take this red all the way up to the edge of that nose. I'm going to leave a little bit of that other colour coming through. I'm going to take the red up to this blue on this edge. Just take that across there. So these are our sort of base colours now that we've got in there. But you can see that it's still very grainy and it's not blended, and it definitely needs to be blended more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to start to blend this again. So I'm going to go in with the brown ochre 10% again. Let's just blend over everything that we've put down, but blend it in a really, really light application of the pencil, or with a light application of the pencil. Can go over that darker red as well. Right up in this corner up here, I'm going to use a little bit of a cadmium orange because I can see some orange coming through. Just a little bit. Bring a bit down there as well. Then let's go back to that cinnamon. Bring some of this cinnamon in across the top again. All light glazes. I'm going to bring in another colour as well, and this is light cadmium red, and I'm going to bring in this light cadmium red Again, just working around the nose, just looking where I can see, sort of getting your eye in for the colour, looking at the colour that you're using and then spotting that colour on the reference photograph just to start building up the dimension of this nose. Leaving that little gap around the edge of the nose there. I'm going to bring a little bit of the brown in, and I'm just going to use the brown that I've already been using. So this is the Van Dyke brown. I'm going to bring a little bit of this brown in and just start to create a bit of dimension on the bottom of this nose. So let's bring the darker brown around the bottom. Let's bring a little bit off this side as well. Again, the pressure's almost non-existent. I'm just going to go to circular strokes right on the bottom. I'll blend that in with the edge of the nose later, with the fur on the edge of the nose. I'm going to go into a bit of the burnt umber as well. Darken this down right on the bottom. And I'm just using a little bit of this burnt umber now to start to shape the edge of the nose. This bit as well, let's just bring a little bit of the brown out into the red of the nose up here. I'm going to use the dark sepia. I'm going to make this bit dark around here. Actually, I'm going to go in with the warm grey, the cold grey one. And I'm just going to blend this around here first. I need to get rid of the grain around this bit. So let's just get rid of that grain around there. Then I'm going to go in with the dark sepia and I'm going to blend out the edge of that nose. Let's just feather out from this outside edge of this nose and let's just bring this out. Let's just start to feather it out into the rest of the face. I'm not going to go too far because I haven't put any base layers. So I'm really just sort of plotting the fur in extra little blue bit that I was talking about earlier there. So I've just plotted that in. I'm going to go back in with the coal grey in there. Make sure that's nice and blended, and also just put a little bit of that light ultramarine that I was talking about. Bring a bit of the light ultramarine around here as well. And I just want to make sure the bottom of this nose is nice and dark. So I'm just glazing over that. Even if I want to make something dark, unless it's a really small space, like, you know, this, like this nostril. I tend to still sort of build things up with glazes. I mean, you know, there are times when I will just sort of make things really quite dark quite quickly, but on the whole, I do use a lot of glazes, even when I'm trying to make things darker. I've got this area down here that I need to make darker, and I just keep going back over it. Let's just feather that out. Come back into that, and then I can just make this a little bit darker around here. And I've done that, and actually I can see that there's a bit of the red coming through there, so I'm just going to take that little bit back out, and let's just keep the darker bit around here. Come back with the coal grey one, and a little bit of the ultramarine just to darken that. And I'm also going to bring some of the ultramarine in to the nose. I'm actually going to let some of that ultramarine come over and into the orange bit or the red bit. Same round here. Let that gently blend over. Just going to bring a little bit of this cold grey around here. I just want to soften the edge of this nose. It's just a little bit harsh there, so I'm just going to soften the edge of the nose with the cold grey. Just dot it over, let it just blend over into the orange area. And I'm just going to blend, or feather really, just feather the darker bit. Same on this side actually, that corner there is just too harsh, it just needs to be blended. So I'm just going to blend that around there. I've got this dark sepia just coming around here. Let's just refine that a little bit more. I'm going to go back with the warm grey one just down here just to blend this. This was that bit that I just said needed opening up a little bit more. So I'm just going to go into that. I'm going to go into the cold grey one on this side because it's just a little bit more blue down the bottom, down there. And then I'm going to use the warm grey one around here where it gets a little bit more peachy or orange, whatever you want to call it. Blending over with the warm grey one. Just trying to get rid of any last little bits of the grain of the paper, but also just blend out the colours a little bit as well. Come back with this scarlet red. And just darken down the bits that are really, really dark. And that's pretty much it for the colour nose. This is just the Buff Titanium, and I'm just going to blend over the top with this Buff Titanium, right over the top here where it just needs to be a little bit lighter. Just going to blend that. I'll bring a little bit of that into there as well. There we go. And I can probably just bring a little bit around there. It is quite a blue sort of grey around there, but I can also see where it goes into some slightly lighter colours. Just blending that bit as well. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of the Payne's grey that we've already used. This is just a little bit bluer. And I'm going to just tidy up the edge of this nose. Just make sure it's nice and feathered. Make sure I've got the depth to show that the nose is going under the fur where I need it. Let's just bring it round here. Feather that bit. I think I said that I might go into the nose with a bit of black, but actually I don't think I'm going to need to. Between the dark sepia and then this little bit of Payne's grey, I'm just going to bring a little bit down there as well. Between those two colours, I don't think I'm going to need to go in with the black, but if I change my mind then that's fine, it doesn't really matter. Making sure that I've got a nice feathered edge where the fur meets the nose. So that's pretty much the nose finished, and you know, I don't think it's a bad colour match for what was there. We've used quite a few colours. I'm just going back with this bit of orange across the top. We've used quite a few colours, and I'm also just going to go with the cinnamon just to turn that orange back into sort of a peachy colour. Yeah, sorry, I was saying we used quite a few colours, but you know, sometimes you just don't have the exact colour that you need, and you have to start mixing the colours. But you can, you know, you can just keep mixing your colours and you will get there. So, okay, so I think that's probably pretty much it for the nose. The only thing I want to do is just take the dark sepia and just expand that line out just a little bit. I just want to soften it. It was just a little bit harsh. So I'm just dotting along the edge of it. And actually, there's quite a red bit right on the top of it, quite a dark bit. There we go. That's just better. I've just blended that out a little bit. Okay, so here's the finished drawing. Really hope that you found the video useful. If you want to follow along with the complete tutorial, you can find that over in the art membership on my website or on Patreon, and I'll add the links into the description. If you've got any questions, then leave them in the comments, let me know. I'll be happy to help. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.